3rd, 2024. Good evening to all and welcome. We have, as usual, Ryan Caith. He is here tonight from KERM, KGOS Radio. This council meeting is being broadcast live on the radio stations and on the YouTube channel. We also have here Amber Wolfington from the Torrington Telegram. Welcome, Amber. This is our first meeting in September, 17th meeting of the year. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked Councilman Shane Victorin to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the Harley Mark Remembrance. Chief Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for giving us a few minutes this evening to remember and honor the service and sacrifice of Torrington Police Department Lieutenant Harley Mark, who gave his life for our community in the line of duty on September 7th of 1993. Lieutenant Mark was fatally wounded in a motor vehicle accident while attempting to apprehend a violent offender who preyed upon our community. With us tonight are Lieutenant Mark's wife, Joanne, and his 3 daughters, Tammy, Wendy, and Dawn, as well as other family members. When a law enforcement officer falls in the line of duty, one of the traditions that is used to honor that officer's service is the last radio call, where the officer is formally called out of service. At the request of Lieutenant Mark's family, we will remember him this evening by repeating his last radio call that was written by one of his coworkers and read when he was laid to rest on September 10th of 1993. I'll do my best to get through this. 101, Torrington. 101, Torrington. 101 in the blind. This is your final call. You will be deeply missed by everyone and fondly remembered for the love of your family, including police department coworkers and their families. Your diligence to duty and continual striving to make our community a better place to live will be a hallmark for those who follow in your footsteps. Be advised that your badge number has been retired and will be displayed with honor. We pray that from your vantage point, you will be able to paint landscapes beyond imagination. Rest assured, friend, you will not be forgotten. 101 is 1042, gone fishing. Lieutenant Mark's commitment to his family and this community truly is a hallmark, and he left big footsteps for all of us to follow. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us to remember and honor Lieutenant Mark, and please keep his family in your thoughts and prayers on this anniversary of his loss. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Johnson. Next item on the agenda are the mayor's informational items. Summer officially ends on Sunday, September 22nd, 2024. But for many, summer has already ended and fall has begun. The swimming pool is closed for the season, and football, volleyball, tennis, and golf have taken over from baseball and softball. We still have many beautiful outside days ahead. Please continue to enjoy your gardens, our municipal golf course, and our many parks and walking paths. Summer chores continue, lawn mowing and weed pulling. I do thank all of you who have worked hard to keep your lawns mowed and your weeds pulled. I also recognize that we have had a very hot summer and a dry one on top of that. I know it is expensive to water in the summer when it's so dry and so hot. And I recognize that weeds seem to thrive no matter what happens. But again, thank you for all your hard work in keeping up with your summer chores. When the individual properties are beautiful, the city is beautiful. So thank you for your efforts. Constitution Day is celebrated on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. Constitution Day commemorates the formation and signing of the Constitution of the United States of America on September 17th, 1787. The more of the basics of the Constitution, which is our fundamental law, are taught to young, middle, and old alike, the more likely we are to live in a free, prosperous, and a good nation. As always, the U.S. Constitution should be read and studied in the light of the Declaration of Independence signed in 1776. The Declaration of Independence sets forth the basic political theory of the Founding Fathers, upon which political theory the Constitution itself is based. And that is this, that our individual rights come from God, and it is the primary purpose of government to protect and defend and to secure those God-given rights. Constitution Week this year is September 17th through the 23rd, and I expect to ask the City Council at our meeting on September 17th to approve my signing of a proclamation declaring Constitution Week in the city of Torrington. As these nice fall days are upon us, we can expect a large volume of pedestrian traffic, along with bicycle, motorcycle, and scooter traffic. Please slow down. Please watch out for pedestrians and all forms of vehicular traffic. Please refrain from using your cell phones while driving. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from the August 20th, 24 council meeting as published.
Move to approve the consent agenda as published.
I have a motion from Councilman Kelly to approve the consent agenda as published. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Victorin. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the consent agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda itself.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the agenda.
I have a motion from Councilman Deal to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Councilman Patterson. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approval of the agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is always on the agenda, which is called the public forum. This is for non-agenda items. There is a time limit of 2 minutes, and the speaker must sign up before the meeting. This is a time for the council to listen. No action will be taken. And we do have a gentleman who has filled out the form, Henry Wheeler. And if Henry Wheeler is present, I see him nodding. If you're able, you may come up to the podium and address the council for 2 minutes. And sir, if you'll pull that down, thank you.
This is my first one. But anyway, I don't have much to say except on your connect and disconnect charges that they charge. I personally live at Bell Park Towers. I have no other means of getting oxygen except for through my except for electricity. In the 6 years I have not been late paying for my electricity bills, I did make a mistake for the month of August. Somehow I thought it was July rather than August, and I was going by that. Anyway, I don't see how I can be charged for something that didn't happen. And they charged me big time. They did not disconnect me. They went up to my room. They did not reconnect me. If they didn't disconnect me, how could they reconnect me? You understand what I'm trying to say? I think it's a travesty when the only other entity that, and I didn't even get 30 days. I didn't get notice by telephone or by mail. I never see any notification until they arrived, and I went directly down to where we pay our bill, and they still charge me for it. But there was no notification to me about the whole thing. I depend on electricity for my oxygen. When I first started 6 years ago at Bell Park Towers, anyway, what I'm trying to say, and I'm having a hard time saying, I guess I'm a little nervous. The only other entity that doesn't give you 30 days, which I did not get no 30 days, no way. Is the gas company. But I had never received anything letting me know. And yes, I did make a mistake thinking it was July rather than August. But I still don't think, if they didn't disconnect it, how can I be charged for it? If they didn't reconnect it, how can I be charged for it? That's where I stand on this, and I guess I have nothing else to say.
All right. Well, Mr. Wheeler, we appreciate your coming and letting us know that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next item on the agenda, under action items, item number 1, public hearing, retail liquor license transfer of ownership and transfer of location, license term October 1, 24 through March 31, 25. So we will leave regular session and open this for public hearing. This is regarding a retail liquor license transfer from Pamela J. Delgado Garcia, DBA Garcia's Mexican Restaurant at 1915 Main Street, to Adrian Garcia, DBA Thirsties, at 1901 Main Street. The license is eligible to be transferred contingent upon the actual receipt of approved certificates of occupancy from the Wyoming State Fire Marshal and the City of Torrington. So this is open, a public hearing, and we would like to entertain public comments for. Is there anyone that wants to speak for the transfer? Come forward, ma'am. And if you would, we know who you are, just state your name for the record.
Pamela Delgado Garcia.
Thank you. You have the floor.
Okay, I am requesting the liquor license that I currently hold is allowed and approved by council to be transferred to Adrian Garcia, who happens to be my son. And I'm here to request that. And I think that's what I'm supposed to say.
That sounds good. Gentlemen, any questions for Mrs. Delgado, Miss Delgado Garcia?
So I just have a clarification. This is a full liquor license?
Full retail?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And then, I would be, I have filled out the application. I would in turn, I've applied for just a restaurant license. So if you approve that transfer, then I would then switch to the other license.
Yeah, that's the
Upon
second
approval.
item on the
Yeah,
agenda.
okay. Okay? Is that
Yes.
Any,
All right.
any questions?
I don't have any. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. That was Pamela Delgado Garcia speaking for. Is there anyone out there who is here to speak against the transfer of this liquor license? I don't see any takers for the against side. So now it's time to, well, before I close the public hearing, I'd call on Chief Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The concerns that we have related to this transfer really boil down to the higher level of contact and partnership that we would need to work with a bar as opposed to a restaurant. There's a lot more maintenance involved. We had a really pleasant meeting with Pam and Adrian and talked through what that looks like. They were both in agreement with that. And so particularly with their willingness to work with us to keep things safe, we're comfortable making this transfer and supporting it.
All right, thank you, Chief Johnson. Mr. Eddington, any comments?
Mayor, I don't have a lot. It is subject, you've mentioned the fire marshal and city of Torrington certificate of occupancy. They're in the process of concluding some remodeling. Want to time this right so they can open as soon as they get that completed, and that's why it's set for I believe October 1 opening, subject to receiving those two documents. And as far as I know, that's still progressing in the correct way, and we should have those. But it is subject to that.
Okay. Mr. Estes.
Mayor, as far as my office goes at the building department, they are current. I believe, speaking to the fire marshal, that's pretty much all done for the state. They'll just have to do a final. When everything's done, they'll come out and do a final inspection. They'll then give their certificate of occupancy. They'll have to post their occupant load on there, the max occupant load somewhere. My issue is just on my permit was basically just some bathrooms they redid. So they have to be ADA compliant and making sure all that done. And the other small item of mine is make sure the address is on the front door.
So in my conversations with you, this is all on track for October 1 of 24?
Yes, sir. Last time I was in there, I believe they're drywalling the bathrooms now, and then I did talk to the plumber on a different item, and he mentioned that he would be back in there at some point to finish that, so. Set the fixtures and put everything in there and all the handrails and,
All right,
thank you.
thank you. Ms. Anaya, any comments that we haven't covered?
Yeah, just the final piece. The Liquor Division has considered this application complete, so it's ready for your consideration.
Okay. All right, and I know everybody knows this, but I want to just nail this down. So I hope this all comes together. I do. The last thing I want to do is get in the way of you starting a new business in Torrington. I won't speak for the council, but I sure don't want to do that. But there's two things that still have to be done for you guys to open up with that liquor license on October 1st. So it sounds like everything's on track. Those are two just things at the end of the project that have to be done, and I'm just hoping that that'll all be done. So, does anybody else have any other comments regarding the transfer of the liquor license in item number 1?
Mr. Mayor, I should have asked Pamela while you were up here, or Adrian, just to maybe tell us a little bit more about the business. What your... Yeah, you bet. Yeah, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Come ahead.
Make Adrian do it.
And Adrian, we know who you are, but just when you get up to the microphone, just state your name for the record.
Adrian Garcia. You have some questions about the business in general?
Is it just a bar, Adrian, or are you...
Well, yes, in simplest terms, our mainstream of revenue will be from alcohol sales, but we've sort of implemented lots of different ideas along the way. It's going to be a sort of a multi-purpose venue, an entertainment center. We've just created a different sort of ambiance than what you kind of used to seeing around here. If you guys would like to come take a look sometime soon, feel free to drop by. But yeah, we have permission from the fire marshal himself, since the building is rather large. The back room has been deemed a separate room, like a game room, so we're going to sort of include different activities later on the road, just kind of keep adding different stuff to the bar. But like I say, we built a big stage for live events. On the north wall by the gym, we're implementing sort of an arcade area just over on that side. And then we have the usual stuff for everyone, a bar. But yeah, for the most part, it's just sort of a different business venture, that we're kind of used to seeing around here, something new, something different, a little more, I don't know how to say that, I don't want to say it sound wrong, but more a little upscale, a little more premier style. That's really what it comes down to. And the building's pretty neat because it's such a big building, so it's kind of cool when you walk in and you see it compared to what it was. It was pretty rough shape when we got our hands on it.
Do you have plans for food or?
Yeah, we're going to do some food. Not too much, because then that gets into, again, the health inspector has to come. Well, he does anyway, but then if you do food, you have to do a lot more requirements to pass that. So we're going to do the basics. We've been in contact with him, kind of told him what we're going to serve. He's fine with that. He's going to come once restrooms are completely finished, which Dennis mentioned. The plumber's on his way back because everything else is drywalled and covered already. So yeah, the health inspector's going to come, and he's gone over the whole application process with us. We've given him what we're going to serve. So there'll be some sort of bar foods, but real simple stuff we don't have to have like we do at the restaurant. We have to have a whole bunch of stuff, the hoods and the fire suppression system. We want to avoid that. We don't want to do that anymore. So yeah, there'll be food, and like I say, different entertainment, obviously drinks, but a little bit more of a lounge style bar during the week. And then on the weekends, we kind of want to flip the script and do a little bit more, I don't want to say club, you kind of get that vibe from it though. Once you see all the other lights that turn on and stuff, it's pretty cool. So we kind of want, just like I say, multi-purpose. We're going to do a lot of different stuff, activities to keep people entertained. And then it's a neat spot right on the corner of Main Street, right downtown. So we think it's perfect for a location. The location's perfect for a business like that.
So I saw on the schematic, there's a stage. You built a stage, so you're planning to have
yeah,
bands and
bands, DJs. It's a very large stage. It's like, I think 25 by 12. It takes up that whole wall in the back pretty much. So yeah, we're gonna have live bands that come in the building, DJs. We're gonna try and get some different type of music to come to town, different events to draw people in, even from town, but from outside of town possibly, bringing more people to the town, to spend some money here in our town, and so everybody benefits essentially. So yeah, the stage it's pretty neat. Actually, the whole building is, so if you guys want to come take a look, like I said, feel free.
That's all I had, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, we've had public comments for, none against this, and I will go ahead and close the public hearing for item number 1 on the agenda. And now it goes to council returns to regular session to vote on this. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve this transfer contingent upon the certificate of occupancy.
All right, I have a motion from Councilman Patterson to approve the transfer contingent on the certificate of occupancies from the State Fire Marshal and the City of Torrington. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Kelly. Is there any further discussion, gentlemen? All right. All those in favor of approval of the liquor license transfer as set forth in item number 1, contingent on approved certificates of occupancy from Wyoming State Fire Marshal and City of Torrington, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that transfer is approved, subject to those 2 contingencies. Thank you. All right. We will go back into public hearing on item number 2, which is public hearing related to Pamela J. Delgado Garcia doing business as Garcia's Mexican Restaurant, has applied for a restaurant liquor license at 1915 Main Street. And so this is open for public hearing, and I would first call on Deputy Clerk Sylvia Naya.
So since the transfer just went through for the retail, she's applying for a restaurant liquor license to take place at Garcia's with the same effective date of October 1st.
All right. Mr. Eddington, any comments?
None. Thank you.
Chief Johnson?
No concerns.
Hey, Mr. Estes? No concerns, Mayor. Okay. All right, well, we are open for public hearing. Do I have anyone here who would like to speak for this issuance of a liquor license to Pam Delgado Garcia doing business as Garcia's Mexican Restaurant? I think Pam had a chance to kind of speak to that. She may come up here again if she wants.
If my first, oh, I can come. I don't want to waste everyone's time.
No. You're not wasting anybody's time.
I would just appreciate approval, because obviously that would set things in motion for everything else to come together. And I do still want to be able, although this license is more limited, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm getting old, and I want to do less anyway, so I'm okay with this license. Upon approval, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right,
Any
thank you.
questions?
Mr. Mayor, this probably won't change much in the way
No.
Garcia's operates.
No, there are some differences. Sylvia and I discussed those as well, but I'm perfectly fine with those changes.
Councilman Patterson.
I'd like to make a comment if I could. Adrian called me, and I can't remember how long it was, maybe a year ago
Yeah.
or several months ago,
Probably.
that this was in the works, and I appreciate that. It's kind of the heads up, and it's been nice to see this kind of come to fruition, so.
Well, thank you. We had wanted to reach out to everyone, and we were happy that everyone took our calls. Poor Dennis, he's probably going to block my number, but he's taken all my calls for all my questions, clarification. You know, we're just trying to do what we're required to do to avoid any issues, you know, and I've had multiple discussions with Mr. Eddington as well. We had a really nice visit with the chief of police. So we've made every effort to comply and, you know, to make sure we meet all the requirements. So, and we really appreciate everyone's support. That means a lot to us, so thank all of you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Going once, going twice. Anyone else want to speak for the granting of this restaurant liquor license? Seeing no takers, anybody out there that wants to speak against the granting of this restaurant liquor license? See nobody there. I will go ahead and close the public hearing then. We will return to regular session for a vote.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve the granting of the restaurant license to Pamela J. Delgado Garcia, DBA Garcia's Mexican Restaurant.
All right, I have a motion for Councilman Deal to approve the restaurant liquor license that's set forth in item 2. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Deal. Excuse me, Councilman Victorin. I'm sorry. Any further discussion, gentlemen?
Yes, I perhaps have a question, Mr. Mayor, for the deputy clerk. The differences between a restaurant license and a bar and grill license, I know they have, the focus mostly has to be on food or entertainment versus the bar and grill license, but.
Yeah, so restaurant, it has to be 60% sales food, 40% alcohol. She can no longer cater or sell package. And when food sales stop, alcohol service stops as well.
Very good. Thank you very much.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Item number 2, all those in favor of approving the granting of a restaurant liquor license to Pamela J. Delgado, doing business as Garcia's Mexican Restaurant, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that application for a restaurant liquor license is approved. Thank you. All right, we are now on item number 3 of the agenda, agreement for professional services with Old Glory Engineering. Staff recommends Old Glory Engineering of Saratoga, Wyoming to perform engineering and grant writing services for the preparation and submittal of 2 CDBG grant applications for the following projects: FY25 sewer and manhole lining improvements, and FY25 WTP and BPS-2 West Sea generators in an amount not to exceed $3,650. So I would call on, first on Jeff Harkins, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you stated, Old Glory Engineering is, we'd like to retain them to fill out the applications for the CDBG grant applications. The CDBG program has been used by the city in the past to construct both water and sewer projects. If we're successful in receiving the grants, as this is still a competitive application process throughout the state, the grants, and I know I said in the background, will cover 100%, but I should say could cover 100% because I did some more research. And it's based on a point structure when they evaluate the applications. And one of the areas that is evaluated is local commitment and leveraging. The local commitment, if the city were to provide 25% of the project cost, you could get 10 points max for that. Between 15 and 25, you'd get 8%. Less than 15%, you'd get 5. And of course, if you don't contribute anything, you get 0 points. The caveat to that is if you don't contribute anything and they do award you the project, you could get 100% coverage of the project. On the leveraging side, because between the local commitment and leveraging, there's a maximum total of 25 points. So if you're doing leveraging using the CDBG money, if you get 50% other funding, you would get an additional 15 points for that. If you get between 25 and 50%, you get 10 points. 15 to 25%, 5 points, and then less than 15%, you get 0 points. So, again, it could cover 100%, but every time you don't contribute to it, I think you're, based on the competitive nature of the grant program itself, you may not be awarded a grant. So, just for your consideration. We currently estimate the sewer line and manhole improvement project at $1.1 million, and the water treatment plant and West Sea generators at about $1.6 million. And those are very preliminary estimates at this time. So the fiscal year 2025 budget includes $100,000 for professional services under the 52-4300, which is the sewer fund. So we do have adequate funds to cover the request for the agreement for professional services. And some other research I did look into, the fiscal year 24-25 budget for CDBG is $3.5 million. So you can see the two projects we have are more than 50% of the available funding, and I'm sure there's others within the state that are going to be applying for this money also. So, having said that, I'll entertain any questions.
I have a simple question. CDBG, that's Community Development Block Grant?
Correct.
Okay. And just to educate us all, my understanding too is these grants used to be administered under the Wyoming Business Council, but they're now administered by the Wyoming Community Development Authority. And I know
Correct.
Councilman Deal has been on that. I don't know if he's currently on that.
No.
Okay. Just that's who the entities we're dealing with here, right?
Well, we're basically dealing with the WCDA, Wyoming Community Development Authority. They are handling, I guess what you would say, the HUD aspect of the federal government within the state for this program.
And this will be a federal grant if it's
Correct.
awarded.
Money's federal.
Do you have any concerns about the city being able to comply with all the requirements that might come our way due to it being a federal grant?
Well, we're kind of hoping that this engineering firm that we're looking to get an agreement with will be able to handle a lot of the paperwork aspect. But we'll see.
Okay.
There is a tremendous amount of paperwork and hoops that you do have to jump through. So,
And it's my understanding that this Old Glory Engineering has experience in exactly this type of grant writing and so on?
that's our understanding at this point.
And the way, what you're requesting us to approve is to pay the Old Glory Engineering some amount not to exceed $3,650.
Correct?
Mr. Troxell's getting my attention here. Do you want to come up and do you have something to say, Mr. Troxell?
I just want a matter of clarification.
Okay.
I thought maybe that 3,000 some dollars was a misprint.
My agenda says $3,650.
Mine does too.
That's that's got that figure in the contract, right? Proposed
correct?
contract.
That's what he gave me
Their
as far
budget,
as the
yeah.
contract goes.
Because that also
To-
pretty much matches the 3,650,000 total. Not to exceed, the West Seeds generators is not to exceed the amount of 3,650,000. Is that, maybe I'm misreading that too as well, but.
Well, I can't read your mind, Tom, but I think what we're talking about is the value of the contract between Gold Glory Engineering and the city of Torrington. That's where the $3,650.
That's correct. That's the contract between Old Glory and the city of Torrington.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Will be coming with a resolution at the next council meeting.
Does that help?
That helps.
And also, Mr. Mayor, it looks as if to me that fee is based upon an hourly charge and not a scope of the project cost.
Correct. It could be less, but won't be more.
Won't be more than $3,650. The contract between the city of Torrington and Old Glory Engineering.
Very good.
Okay.
One other thing I would like to mention while I'm up here is last year's projects award was City of Riverton Water Tank Rehab was $660,000. City of Riverton, they awarded $2,601,000 for their wastewater treatment plant process upgrades. And let's see, there was Aggie River Park Jefferson was City of Lander was $1.2 million they awarded. So our consultant really has high hopes that we'll be awarded some money. And I hope so, because the way the economy is, it helps, every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps. And my understanding of this gentleman, Old Glory Engineering, is he's done this. He knows how to do this. He's been successful at doing this.
He was former city engineer for City of Rollins, so he did help Rollins get some grants. I met him up at conference, and we've used CDBG in the city before successfully on various water and sewer line improvements. It does help. It does help keep the rates low. The paperwork is a nightmare, or was. It's getting better. We used to have to go door to door to do income surveys. Torrington right now meets those. To qualify for this grant, you have to meet 51% of the LMI, low to medium household income. Right now, Torrington's at 54%. So
It qualifies.
we qualify. So it's a good program. It's just monotonous, I guess, paperwork-wise, tedious.
Well, it may well be worth whatever
But I
effort.
think it's worth the time and effort.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Troxel.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I could enlighten on the CDBG program just a little bit, since I
Go ahead, Councilman
was on the
Deal.
WCDA board for 8 years and chair for 2 years of that particular board. That is money that is awarded from the government to the state of Wyoming, well, to all states for that matter. The governor's office then dispenses that money to different agencies, and it used to be the business council got the lion's share of it. And when I was chair, I think we got about 30% of the CDBG money. But that decision was made to make that change. And it is graded on a scale, and so it's appears to be objective, because what you get as a board member is just a tally of here's what the score is. So as Mr. Harkins suggested, anything we can do to increase our score obviously makes us more favorable in line to receive that grant.
Okay. Words of wisdom for a former chairman of that board. Okay.
So even if we do this, there's no guarantee they'll get a grant anyway, correct?
There's no guarantee, because like I said, it is a competitive process, and it's based on a scoring system, like Mr. Deal said. And depending on how many other cities within the state apply for this funds, because there is only 3.5 million available this year for this program.
Well, the way I'm looking at it, the worst thing that could happen is we pay this engineering firm, Old Glory, some amount of money, not to exceed $3,650. And if we're successful, we have a huge grant that comes our way. If we're not successful, we're out some fee money to the engineering firm.
Correct.
And a point of clarification, this grant is due the 27th of September, and it's a lot of paperwork to get done in that short amount of time, so it'd be very helpful to have him help us with that.
Because he's got experience doing these.
And more time.
More time. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So the clock is ticking.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve item 3.
All right. I have a motion from Councilman Patterson on item 3 on the agenda to approve the agreement for professional services with Old Glory Engineering as set forth. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, pardon me, from Councilman Kelly. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor on item number 3 of approving the agreement for professional services with Old Glory Engineering signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that agreement is approved, set forth in item 3. Next item on the agenda is item number 4, a request to approve and award a bid for fiscal year 2025 well number 5 submersible pump and motor replacement. Staff is recommending the awarding the bid to Sargent Drilling of Broken Bow, Nebraska in the amount of $63,362 with no contingency. And I would call on Director of Public Works, Jeff Harkins.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This project consists of the removal of the existing well number 5 submersible pump and motor and replace it with a new submersible pump and motor and all the associated electrical wiring and piping improvements. We did have a bid opening on August 21st, 2024. Sargent Drilling submitted the only bid, and it was in conformance with the bidding requirements. We do have $62,000 was budgeted in fiscal year 25 budget for this project. So we are going to supplement that with $1,362, basically in the same account that had the $62,000 in it. That money is available in Tom's water budget. If you have any questions, entertain any questions at this time.
The city of Torrington has done business several times with Sargent Drilling, correct?
A lot of business with Sargent Drilling.
Okay.
The well 16 was drilled by Sargent Drilling, and they do quite a bit of the repairs for our other wells and pump houses.
And so far, so good in our dealings with that company.
Yeah, I think Tom would definitely concur that Sargent's been good for them.
Which one is well number 5?
Well number 5 is one of the 3 wells out at the golf course. There's 3, 4, and 5. So it's on the main well field.
But it's still operational, right?
Yeah, it's still operational.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Director.
Director Harkins, how are these, just for my curiosity, how are all these pumps and motors, are they on a schedule for replacement, or is that part of the water study that was conducted, or is it just based on time?
They're basically based on time. I think there is, Tom could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those particular pumps are on a 15-year replacement cycle, and it is that time for that pump to be replaced. As you probably are aware, we just replaced 3 and 4. It was either last year or the year before. So we should be good at our main well field after the replacement of this pump and motor.
All right, gentlemen, any further questions for Mr. Harkins or Mr. Troxel? Or Ms. Strecker or anybody? I would sure entertain a motion on item number 4 for council to approve the award of that bid to Sergeant Drilling.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to award the bid for the well number 5 submersible pump and motor replacement to Sergeant Drilling of Broken Bow, Nebraska in the amount of $63,362.
All right, I have a motion from Councilman Victorin. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second from Councilman Deal. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of awarding and approving the bid for the well number 5 submersible pump and motor replacement to Sergeant Drilling of Broken Bow, Nebraska in the amount of $63,362 with no contingency, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, item number 4, that bid is approved and awarded. Next item on the agenda is item number 5, the financial report for fiscal year ending June 30, 2024. And there's a packet attached to your agenda, and I would call on Mrs. Strecker, Clerk Treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is the year-end report ending 6/30/2024. We'll start out with the cash balance report for the council as of June 30th. So at the top, we have our restricted funds. If you remember, these are the funds that are restricted for certain uses. We have our health insurance account, sewer reserve account, East K Improvement District, and some capital reserves there for the Kelly Trust Fund. So our total restricted funds is $3.1 million. That's up from 6 months ago. The last report was on 12/31/23. It's up about $300,000 from 6 months ago. In our unrestricted funds, these can be used for general purposes for the city of Torrington. We have some investments with Morton Asset Management totaling $8,026,000. That's up $123,000 from 6 months ago. And you can see in the middle column there what the rate of return is, 5.01 for investments. We also have some investments locally here at Edwards Jones, and you can see those totals there. So for certificates and deposits and bonds, we have $8.5 million, and that is up about $119,000. For checking and savings, these are actually our demand accounts or checking accounts. We have First State Bank, which is used for optional tax, and it's at $5.1 million. Pinnacle Checking operating is at $3.6 million, and our Pinnacle Payroll is at $16,000, and it stays pretty steady. So our total checking and savings is $8.8 million. So our total cash and investments at the end of the fiscal year was $17 million. With the restricted funds, it was at $20 million. You can see that our unrestricted funds were down about $427,000, and our restricted funds, with our restricted funds, makes our total cash on hand down about $126,000. We had a weighted average rate of those deposits of 2.94%. Next, we have our accounts receivable and utility billing and our amounts past due and at collections. So as of 6/30/2024, we had 14,000 amounts past due, and 6 months ago it was at 34,000. So the number of discontinuations for non-payment as of 6/30/24 there were 14 utility accounts totaling about $2,000. Amount at collections was down, and it's at $71,000, and the amount turned over to the city attorney is at $3,850. I believe some of those we did end up writing off. This is just some information for you carried over into FY25. So at the end of the year, we had these things outstanding here. These are high dollar equipment items that we were waiting for. We did get 2 delivered here in August, which, if you remember approving those invoices from last meeting, $645,930 for a new landfill compactor and $330,300 for a refuse truck. So we finally got those in. We are still waiting on the new articulating aerial truck for electric department, a new ambulance for the ambulance department, and a new 1-ton extended cab utility box utility pickup for the water department, I believe. So those dates to be delivered are here to the right. So we have about 1.4 million that is going to hit in fiscal year 25. So the next page we look at, if you remember during budget, I had to estimate where our ending cash would be. So if you look at this as of June 30th, I can tell you where we ended up. So our cash is brought forward from the previous page. We add outstanding deposits and subtract outstanding checks, and we get our adjusted bank balance of 19.8 million. So there's several things that, since we are on accrual basis, we had a large grant receivable for the wastewater treatment plant of about $349,000. So I received the money in July, but the expenses came out in June, so I had to account for those here. And so the actual cash available for fiscal year 25 budget was 15.9 million. I had estimated on the budget, if you look on the final budget numbers, 15.9 million. This is the closest I've ever been. So I was estimating, $15 million cash balance. I was off $6,450. So that's.
You just have to do better.
Yeah. I don't know if I can do much better than that. I was pretty lucky. So that's our cash balances at the end of the year. So now we can look at the budget. At the end of the year, I had kind of an unusual situation this year, which I did not realize until the last few months of the year, the fiscal year in June, or the last few weeks in June. We normally have 26 payroll periods a year. The way it fell this year, I had 27. I had only budgeted 26. So it's happened once in my 22-year career before. It doesn't happen very often, and I did not foresee it this year. But we did pretty good. So luckily, we were very close on some, but it looks like we stayed within our budget. So as far as revenue goes, the general fund revenue is really looking pretty positive. Our taxes were at 109%, meaning we received more than I had budgeted, which is where you want your revenues to be. You want to receive more than what you have budgeted. The ones to really point out are the sales tax was at 116%, and the optional sales tax was at 120, almost 122%. So sales taxes are strong. Not sure if it's because of more sales or the impact of the inflationary numbers. Your items are costing more, so you're receiving more tax. So we'll see how that plays out, but and I'll get to that a little more later. So as far as clerks and licenses and permits, we're at 111%, so that was very good. Mineral royalties was right at 98%, which is really close to 100%, which is what you'd want. Charges for services ended up being about 100.62. Total fines and other revenues were at 149.34. Franchises ended up being 93.76%. So our operating revenue, that's not including grants or loans or any of that type of revenue, was at 106.33 for the general fund. That's pretty good in this economy. The special projects and grants, we have some grants that we are working on. They were at 66.73, but the total general fund revenue with grants and loans and operating revenue was at 104.48. So overall, the general fund looks good for revenue. Let's go on to expenses. Now in expenses, we want the percentages to be 100 or less, preferably under 100. So all the funds have done really well. The closest one, I believe, here is at 98.84% for police, and engineering at 99.87. So, but the majority of their budget is wages, so that's why that one was so close. But total expenses ended up being at 93.43%, which is under 100, which is what we want at 7.4 million. And then the capital construction projects are here. We had $1 million in capital construction and equipment, and that was about 48% of budget. So our total expenditures between projects and operating were at 83%, which is very good. So now let's go on. We just went over our general fund. Let's go on to our enterprise funds. Now our enterprise funds, they're meant to be proprietary funds, which means they need to generate enough revenue to run or operate the services. So water fund is a proprietary fund or an enterprise fund. Their revenues, and I took out all the projects and grants, so we see just operating revenue. So this is just operating revenue here, is at 97.3%, the water fund. Expenses were at 86.01. Again, all of the expenses we want under 100, so that's good. The sewer fund was at 104.93 in revenue, which is good. They were over what I had budgeted. The expenditures were at 71.65. And again, we take out the projects from this, the big capital projects. The electric revenue came in at 101.12, which is really close to what I had budgeted. And you can see there the different departments in the electric fund: purchasing, metering, wholesale power, and distribution. Those came in at 95.49%. Sanitation revenue came in above what I had budgeted at 105%. Collection was at 92 and disposal 75, for total expenditures at 88%. The airport revenue, 94% operating revenue and 84.8 in expenditures. Golf revenue came at 134.42% in revenue, so they definitely exceeded what I had budgeted. And their expenditures couldn't get any closer, 99.99%. So barely under. Swimming pool, their revenues were at 128%, and their expenditures were at 109. Now, I took out some of the project amounts, so their total bottom line budget is fine. It's just that their operating was over. And ambulance revenue come in at 123.78%, and the ambulance expenditures at 93.42. And cemetery revenues were down this year about 77.57%, and their expenditures were at 98.15. So down here are the projects. Of course, general fund, we already talked about. The water fund, they have grants coming in and then projects going on. Most of the time, these are negative. So just keep that in mind. We did have some extra revenue come in for $890.69. That brought the swimming pool out of the negative, so we're good there. And then ambulance revenue for grants and expenditures, and then we have $200,000 waiting on that new ambulance there. Okay, so this is the sheet that kind of tells it all. This is where our net revenue turns out for the end of the year. So net revenue is basically what I brought in this year compared to what I've expended this year. It does not account for any carryover in cash or balances in the budget. So if you remember the first page that we talked about equipment that we were waiting on, but I had to budget it. So that carries over into a cash balance carry forward. That is not included in here. And so when you look at these negative numbers, like, it's not necessarily that they don't have money in the fund. It's that there's cash carryover that balances out that fund that's not included in this. So the balance before, this is before depreciation, and it doesn't include any balance carry forward in the fund. So the general fund is positive at 1 million. The water fund is positive at 286. You see a large negative balance for the sewer fund, 678,000. If you remember, I said that I had a grant, grant money coming in, but that's not going to show on here. So that's why that is so far off there. Electric fund is 41,000 in the negative. Sanitation fund is 228,000 in the negative. Airport's 183 in the negative. Golf is 431,000 in the negative. Swimming pool is 184 in the negative. Ambulance didn't quite make it to the positive at a negative 16,000. And then the cemetery was a negative 277. So you can look at the previous fiscal years at the same time of the year and see what the balances were. So we've had some of those equipment and projects happening this year. We're very busy at the end of the fiscal year. And so we got a lot of equipment in, and that's why some of those balances look negative. If you look at the graph, you can see here the big negative sewer fund. And this year we are a negative net revenue compared to those other 2 years. Okay, so sales tax history. Just to kind of show you where our sales tax is. So this goes all the way back to 2010. Goes back to 2010 and to the current. And it looks like it's cutting it off a little bit here. But anyway, this year we've had the biggest amount collected in sales tax that we've ever had. And you can kind of see, but I think it's going to be leveling off here, and we'll see what happens in the next few years. So that's where sales tax is. And then the last page is, I'm almost done. The last page is our debt and our long-term debt and capital leases that are out there. So long-term debt at the top of the page, I can't read that, so I'll go to my handout here. We have a total of 2.3 million outstanding. The weighted average rate of that debt is 2.75. We've paid off a few of the SRF loans from 2002 and 2005. And I also refinanced the rest of those SRF loans from 2.5% to 1.5%. So that is going to save us some money there. Other than that, we'll probably be filling this back up when we finish our water treatment plant, but but it's looking pretty good. So the weighted average rate I'm paying on a loan is 2.75. And if you remember the front sheet of the financials, I'm earning 2.94. So a little bit of a spread there. Any questions?
Mrs. Strecker, I want to go back to your chart on sales tax history.
Sure.
And the blue line is sales tax, right? And the red line, both have gone up, the blue line and the red line. Can
Yes.
you explain, I know the answer, but can you explain to us what the optional sales tax is, the red line?
Oh, absolutely. So every 4 years, citizens are given a choice on the ballot to continue this. We started this, I don't even remember. It's been a long time ago. But the optional tax is money that comes in from sales tax. It's 1 penny, basically, 1%. That comes in on sales tax that the voters vote in, and it can be used for general purpose. We've had this for quite a while. It is up on the ballot again this year. And it goes to all county towns and Goshen County. It's very important to our operations. It's about 13% of our general fund revenue. So it would be a huge loss if we did not get that, and it'd be hard to provide the services we provide today. Generally, we use most of that to help with grant match, to help, pay for some of these projects and infrastructure. It's imperative to our general fund operations. So we've had it for a long time, and it's been renewed every year. And I'm sure if you talk to any one of the towns in Goshen County or Goshen County, they'll tell you how important it is to them as well. So.
Okay. And I want to say this, I have contacted every mayor in every town in the county, and they all support this, the continuation of this.
Yeah. And I know in the past the legislature has talked about making it permanent, but it hasn't went through, but there's really not a whole lot of ways cities and towns and counties can raise general fund revenue. And sales tax is just one of those ways that we can. We're limited on the amount of property tax we can levy. We get 8 mills, which amounts to about, we can look on there. If you look at the revenue for property tax, it brings in about $368,000. It's not a whole lot when you're talking about a $40 million budget. So.
And just to.
Sales tax makes a huge difference.
And this optional sales tax is on the ballot in the general election this year.
Yes, it'll be in the ballot in November. So, and it doesn't increase, it'll just keep the tax the same.
Gentlemen, any questions for Mrs. Strecker?
I have a brief comment if I could.
Comments?
I think this is the 5th one of these that I've sat through, and I don't think I've ever said this, but I really appreciate you're taking the lead in the budgeting. I know we're all involved in that, but it really is you that's doing it. Your conservative approach, because that really is reflected here, where you tend to underestimate income a little bit and overestimate expense a little bit, and it makes a difference, being conservative like that. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
You need that cushion.
Some days, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any further questions for Mrs. Strecker? Seeing no takers, I would entertain a motion for council to accept the financial report as set forth in item number 5.
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilman Kelly to accept the financial report presented by Mrs. Strecker in item 5. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Councilman Patterson. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, all those in favor in item number 5 of accepting the financial report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that financial report is accepted, and many thanks, Mrs. Strecker. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the bills from August 21st, 24 to September 9th. Nope, September 3rd, 24. And again, I'd call on Mrs. Strecker.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Attached to your agenda were a list of bills, and then handed out tonight was another set of bills that we received today. So it was a madhouse in my office.
I was going to say, the bills attached are almost the same size as the
Yes,
bills
we got a
we
lot in
tonight.
today.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question on one. This is the original set, page 2. Second item down is community hospital. ER visit, accident on the job. I just wondered about workers' comp, and I don't mean to violate any confidentiality, so if there's something.
Yeah, yeah. That was, I believe, for an employee. It wasn't a serious visit, just basically to make sure they were okay after an accident.
Workers' comp didn't cover that, or?
No, we didn't think it was a continuous, or would be, and so we did not report it to workers' comp.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if there are no more questions about the bills, I will make a motion to approve them as presented.
I have a motion from Councilman Kelly in item number 6 to approve the bills as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Victorin. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor in item 6 of approval of the bills as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, those bills in item 6 are approved. Next item on the agenda is public comment, and I was kind of warned that Fire Chief Luis Correa may not be here tonight, but he is. So if you want to come up and tell us what's going on, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, as you said, I was actually, I got back just around 4:30, and I think it was about 5 o'clock by the time we got our trucks back. Unfortunately, there was a structure fire that we were on. But we contained it to just the room and contents of the kitchen and the outside area, patio area. So, but yeah, it's still been a little bit calm for us. We've ran about 8 calls since the last council meeting. Some of them were just grass fires. One we went to, we got dispatched out, and we were literally on the state line was halfway in between the road, and we were on the Nebraska side, so we got to help out our neighbors in Nebraska, literally by half a road. Yeah, other than that, a couple of calls that we've gone to were people burning and not calling it in, or just not complying with the burn ban that's currently in place, so.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but we have this come up fairly regularly. If you're going to have a controlled burn, well, first of all, pay attention to the burn ban. And then second, if you're in compliance with the burn ban and you do have a controlled burn, please call dispatch.
Yep, yeah.
Let them know.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple process. The dispatchers make it pretty easy. You just let them know, and it saves us time and resources, not going out chasing out smoke. But yeah, other than that, it's been fairly, like I said, fairly quiet for us. We did lose our command vehicle on the way back into this, coming back from this call, so we had to have it towed to the city shop for Brian to look at. So hopefully it's a simple fix.
Mr. Mayor, do you have any equipment or personnel that have been called out or out working on any of the other fires around the state?
We don't. It's kind of most of our guys. It's we're pretty limited to just going out in the summer, and typically at the start of school is the end of our fire season. So a large part of our guys that are red carded and are able to go out on federal fires, federal dispatches, are also teachers. So.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question, if I could. I was asked this, and I don't know the answer, so I'm going to ask the folks that probably do. So I don't know if this goes to you or the chief of police or the city attorney. People in town sometimes have fire pits where they openly burn.
Mm-hmm.
Is that affected at all by the burn ban?
I believe as long as it's a covered fire pit, it's allowable.
But not open?
But not an open pit necessarily. It's kind of a gray area right there, as long as it's contained and they're being responsible about it. We'll typically let it go, but if you're burning a bunch of leaves and it's blowing 100 miles an hour, we're gonna take care of it. But yeah, it's typically that's what we'll do, is if it's contained, even if it's not covered necessarily, we'll like I said, if you're being responsible about it and have a water source nearby that can handle any of those things that can get out of control, because as we all know, it's very windy in Wyoming, and sometimes that takes that fire and places it elsewhere.
Thank you.
What's the best place for citizens to go to get the current burn ban that's in effect?
I believe the fire warden is the one. He would be the best to do that.
Is that on the county website?
I believe he does have that. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe so.
Sure?
Yep. Yep.
All right. Any further questions for the fire chief? All right, thank you, Luis.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we are still in public comment section. I did call on the fire chief. Is there anybody out there that has a public comment? Any council members that have a public comment? All right, we will close the public comment section, and I would entertain a motion to move us into executive session.
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilman Patterson to move us into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Deal. Any further discussion about that? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving us into executive session signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, we will now move into executive session.